Ebola is the wrath of God, some say. And in other news, it is also suggested that we begin drilling holes in people's skulls to release the demons from people with chickenpox, and we're also going to start recommending that diabetics begin confessing their sins. The message that Ebola is the wrath of God pisses me off on so many levels. And not all Christians believe this. But man, some of the ones that do are just so loud and annoying. Of course, they can't agree on why God is or is allegedly punishing the human race. Some say it's just for sin as a whole, others say for legalizing same sex marriage in New Jersey, and others still say that it's the war in the Middle East because we're being punished for dividing up Israel's land that he gave them. First of all, can I say that these last two are just really shitty reasons? Out of all of the wrong in the world, out of all the things that really hurt people, out of all the people starving and the Vatican with their millions of dollars in decoration, yes, I'm sure God has decided to plague the world because of same-sex marriage and because land got divided. Like, jeez, get your priorities straight. Also, I think it's kind of strange that God's priorities for why he's punishing the human race or whatever so closely mirror the priorities of whomever is bringing this doomsday message. Furthermore, it is just plain bad parenting to have to punish someone without making it clear why. It's in parenting books, it's in dog training books. So I guess for Jesus' next birthday this Christmas, and here just a couple months, I will be getting him some parenting books. Because it's just ineffective to punish people when they don't know why. At that point, it's just abusive. Speaking of abusive, it is abusive to say that God is punishing people or that bad things are going to happen or worse things are going to happen if you don't do what he says, which is of course what you say he says, because no one agrees on what he actually says. So that's just threatening. It's unnecessary and it's just plain wrong. And of course, another reason unrelated to the morality of it and whether or not a God actually exists that I have difficulty believing this is the wrath of God is because it's a really shitty plague. The other times that I've heard of God, sending a plague or punishing the human race or whatever, I seem to remember it being a lot more effective than this. Because in the US, there have been no deaths and only, 3 people who have been confirmed to have contracted it? That's just really anticlimactic. And even in Africa, the number of deaths from Ebola is far surpassed by the number of deaths from AIDS or dehydration or a number of other things. It doesn't even come close. It's not even in the top 10. Again, anticlimactic. I really would expect something bigger and better from someone who created the entire universe. It doesn't spread well. It's terribly inefficient. It currently only spreads through bodily fluids, not airborne or anything like that. So again, I would expect the creator of the universe to have a much more efficient and effective plague. This is the worst damn wrath of God, punishment, plague on the human race in history. And if this is God's wrath, then he should be ashamed of himself. Furthermore, and back to the morality of the topic, is that if it's the wrath of God and we don't know why we're being punished, There's also the issue that the punishment doesn't fit the crime. Well, of course, we don't even know what the crime is, but either way, the punishment doesn't fit it, because what crime does that fit? I mean, seriously, other than deliberately infecting people with something as a medical experiment with no regard for human life and against their will, or something of that nature. I can't see this applying to anything. See, even in our flawed human justice system, we have something called habeas corpus. We're against cruel and inhumane punishment. And last I heard, Ebola is a very horrific way to die. We don't even kill the most terrible serial killers, rapists, child molesters, or anything in a manner like this. Why are we more concerned about human life and suffering than God is, an all-loving God at that? That doesn't make any sense at all. Are we more moral than God? Because that's what the evidence would suggest. Because we would not kill people like that and consider it to be moral. And yet God is? And I also haven't heard of him protecting the innocent in this either. So it's just completely unjust. So this is Firewalker, and I just had to share some of my thoughts on this because I was reading and I'd seen some of this come up on some of the channels I'm subscribed to, and I just had to get that out there. So thank you for sticking around for this little rant, and I'd be interested in hearing how you think people can justify this as the wrath of God and still keep it in line with their views of an all good and just God. So be sure to rate, comment, subscribe, share down below, and I will be seeing you guys shortly for a video on the morality, the moral law argument as a justification for the belief in God. So that should be pretty interesting. I'm really looking forward to that one. And everybody stay safe and healthy, and try not to touch the bodily fluids of anyone infected with Ebola. Otherwise, God's wrath is upon you.